evening. Thank you for coming and joining us this evening to unveil our concept drawing for our new dog park for the City of New Bedford. My name is Mary Raposer. I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Beaches for the City of New Bedford. This is Jay Emperor. He's the designer with Presley Associates, and I'm going to be handing the mic over to him shortly. But before I do, I just wanted to give you an idea of how we've gotten to this point. So back in 2008, the City Council established a dog park committee, and they knew that there was a lot of interest in the city among dog owners to have a dog park, an off-leash park where people could bring their dogs and let them run, that was safe and well-maintained. And so they set the parameters, and then sometime around 2013, I took over and started meeting with people who were interested in dog parks, with dog owners, with the dog officer in the city. We had a few informal meetings where we discussed best practices, where people shared what they thought was a successful dog park. And based on all of that information, I put together a grant proposal to the Stanton Foundation. The Stanton Foundation is a foundation out of Boston, and one of the things they fund is dog parks. So they have a dedicated fund for dog parks in Massachusetts. And we were lucky enough to receive funds from the Stanton Foundation for both the design and for the construction phase of the park. So tonight what we're doing is we're going to be showing you the preliminary concept drawing. Jay will walk you through it, and then we're going to have an opportunity for you to respond with some ideas that you may have or concerns. And there's going to be an interactive piece, and then after that, if anyone wanted to get up and speak, we'll have the opportunity for you to do that as well. So I'd like to turn it over to Jay at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, everyone, for coming out here tonight. I can see this is obviously a very important park in New Bedford, so we're going to do our best to give you a great park. What I'm going to present tonight is, like Mary said, a concept plan. So nothing here is set in stone, but we needed something to start from. So we developed 2 or 3 options, worked with Mary and her crew, and worked towards one that we felt was the best for the site and the uses. So I'm just going to walk through 3 or 4 of the specific areas. And like Mary said, we're going to throw the plan on the table and let you mark it up, put Post-it notes on it, and get all your thoughts and feelings on there. So what we have here is, I'd like to call it existing conditions, but it's not exactly existing. This is the best we could find on Google, but it shows the site post removal of the residences there. It clearly now has the stone, and it's been mitigated for the issues that we had out there. So we kind of have a blank slate for the most part. So here we have the same plan we have over here. We have a parking area here, and then the dog area over here. Here we have Ruggles Street and Hathaway, just to help you get oriented. So the parking area is off Hathaway. We felt the area tucked over by the church would be the best for grading and for access. It would be minimal impact onto the site itself and direct access to the street. So we have approximately 14 or 15 parking spots out there. And then to close off Greenwood, we have a raised concrete plaza, if you will, with some bollards going across there. So if need be for emergency access or plowing, those bollards can be removed, but for the most part, this would be a closed street throughout the year. So cars would pull in here, park, and then walk towards the park entrance. We're also placing screening around the parking lot to minimize the impact of the cars for the adjacent neighbors. So the park entrance itself, because of the remediation on the site, the whole site is raised 3 or 4 feet. So we want to minimize the impact of what we do onto that. So we're actually going up into the park. So we'll have a ramp here, or we have a couple stairs, a bench and some trash cans, and then you would enter the corral. It's going to be accessed via a card pass for security reasons. Mary knows all the details of how that will be.
I'll get into
okay,
that
all right.
a little bit more about this.
Yeah, but for security, that would be an access point there. Then you could either go into the large dog area here, or the small dog area there. Again, we'll have trash cans, a few benches, and some mutt mitts. So as people enter the park, they can grab a bag to minimize the waste that we have in the park. And then what you really care about is for the dogs. So what we have is a small dog area in this square area, and then we'll call it an L shape for the large dogs. Again, the access point is right here. We would have a concrete walkway to a few seating areas, so there'd be one here, one there, and one there, just so dog owners can sit, and because we understand that these types of parks are very social, so it's about as much as the dogs as it is about the people. So we want to give people a little place to congregate as they throw their balls or whatever for their dogs. The surface itself of the dog park would be a pea stone. We found that to be the least maintenance, easier to clean off dogs and whatnot. So we're not going to have a lot of mess. It's easy to clean off. Then we're planning for 2 areas for agility equipment. Based on budgeting and whatnot, we might not have a lot of equipment up front, but that's something that could be phased in over the long term. Fencing will be 5 to 6 foot panel fence, so that will keep the dogs in place. And then probably a 4-foot fence between the 2 areas, just to make it a little bit more social for people, but then still to separate the dogs. We'll probably have a concrete curb underneath the fence, so if any dogs are diggers, they won't be able to dig their way out to freedom. And then again, we'll also have some screening along the edge here for the residents, for their not protection, but maybe make it better for them. And some of the, again, materials, the site amenities of the park itself. The fence would be a metal panel type like this versus a chain link, which we feel looks a little too industrial. We've used these actually at a dog park recently in East Boston very successfully. And it's actually less expensive than chain link, easier to replace. So this would be similar to what the corral and then the fence around the park would look like. We'll have a water fountain for both people and dogs, some benches, trash cans, and then this is an image of the pea stone to show you what the size and the color for anyone that's not familiar with it. So that's a very quick review of the park and where we are right now. So I don't know if...
Yeah, before we move to the next step.
Yeah.
So one of the other things we would be doing is installing irrigation, and that will help to keep the pea stone clean. And when we met with dog owners who frequent dog parks, it was unanimous just about across the board that they all preferred the pea stone surface for both cleanliness and just appearance, because it just, it stays nice looking. Yeah. One of the things I should mention too is the site. I know that there's been some conversation about the site. We met with the abutters as the site cleanup was moving forward, and they were offered several scenarios of how the site might be developed. And I was at those meetings, and I heard the abutters say, when we suggested a dog park, they said, now that's something we can live with. That's the best idea you've brought to us. The plan is slightly different than the first plan that we submitted. The original plan I drew up, that was the plan that I submitted to the grant agency. So once the site was remediated and we had the existing conditions, it just became clear that because of the grade at the, on that, north side of the dog park, that it wasn't going to work for the parking lot. The south side, where the parking lot is now located, is at grade, so there wouldn't be that transition that would make it very difficult for parking to go in there. We did consider the neighbors, so there's quite a few feet between the butter's property and the dog park proper, and it will be completely screened with evergreen trees, which will provide a visual as well as a sound screening, so it should mitigate both of those. One of the things, we did meet with the Falmouth Dog Park Committee, and one of the things that they told us, that they said that there was some concern from neighbors before that dog park went in, but that the neighbors now consider the dog park like one of their best neighbors ever. And they actually said that if we had any neighbors who had concerns about that they'd be happy to get people from Falmouth to come here and discuss that with you, because they They had concerns before the park went in, and then once the park went in, they were very happy to find that the dog park was a really good neighbor. So the site has been mitigated. The environmental department in the city who handled the mitigation, they've been on the committee the whole way. And one of the things I know that people are sometimes concerned about is that it was a site that was mitigated, but this site now is completely clean. It's possibly one of the cleanest sites in the city because they've had to go in, remove quite a bit of soil from the site, I mean feet. And then they've got a barrier, and they've actually got 2 barriers, and then they've come back in with the clean fill on top. And so the dog park will be on top of that. So we're very confident that the site is absolutely suited to a park. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing I want to mention, we just passed over the access piece. So it will be it'll be a double gated entry so that you'll come in one gate and then you can let your dog off the leash, and then there'll be another gate to actually get into the dog park. But you will need to have a pass card, and those pass cards will be purchased at City Hall. And in order to purchase a pass card, you will have to have proof that your dog is neutered, licensed, and that they have all their shots up to date. And so people can have confidence in the other dogs that will be in the park. And the city, with the pass cards, there will be some fee for that. That has not been determined. That will be determined by the dog park committee. That the money that is collected for those fees will go into an account that will be used specifically for upgrades and maintenance of the dog park, so that we know long-term that the dog park will be sustaining itself. Oops.
So I don't know if we want to throw it on the table or open it up to questions.
I don't, that's up to you.
I think actually it might be better to do a couple questions up front.
Okay.
So does anybody have any specific questions or about the?
If you have a question, do you mind coming up to the mic?
Do you know what the hours of the park are going to be? Is it going to be closed at sundown and open at sunset?
In general, all the city parks are open dawn to dusk. So that's probably what we're going to do.
Okay.
But we are going to, like I said, one of the stipulations with the funding is that we establish a Friends of the Dog Park committee. So anyone who's interested in being on that committee, please let us know. But that committee will have a lot of say in how we decide, on the fees and the hours and the usage.
That actually goes to lighting, which is one thing I didn't touch on, but we'll want to work through how much of the site is lit, how late it's lit, and if we light the parking lot separately. So that's something we're going to look into as well.
One is if you could give dimensions on the small and large areas.
That's actually a great question that I do not have an answer to right now.
Because the small area looks kind of small to me, but I don't know.
Yep.
I'm familiar with the dog park in Fall River, and the small dog area there actually gets used more than the large
Does
dog
it?
area.
Okay.
Because mid-sized dogs, my dog included, are not always comfortable with the bigger dogs.
Right.
And another thing that's there that's useful is that they have a long run where a less socialized dog can get some exercise and do some parallel play running up and down.
Okay. So almost a area within the area of the.
It's like along the outside,
Okay. Yep.
So the dog runs back and forth and the other dogs run alongside it. And it doesn't have to be a perfectly socialized dog to do that.
That's great. Okay. One thing that we tried to do is not create any corners in the park itself. Therefore, if any dogs, more aggressive dogs, they can't trap a dog in the corner. The only corner we do have is right there, but the other corners are all rounded, so a dog could keep going and not get trapped in the corner.
So will it be that committee that you're talking about, those that want to be a part of that particular committee, that would help to keep it clean and maintain it, or is that something that the city of New Bedford would be responsible for?
Yes, the city will be responsible for maintenance of this park, just like any other park, but the Friends of would be, they may want to do some programming. I know at the Falmouth Dog Park, they have dog parties, and also if there was any conflict between dog owners, that we would hope that the Friends would be the ones that would try to mitigate that. If going forward, people decide that, maybe we need to have some more rules in place, then we were hoping that the Friends of the Dog Park, that's really the role we're looking for them to take on. And we will be having funds available, so the Friends of the Dog Park would also be in a position to tell us, gee, it would be great if we could spend some funds on this.
Now, that is, the Friends of the Dog Park is a requirement of the grant. So we need to have this organization established for this dog park. So I encourage anybody that wants to be in there. I don't believe there's a limit. Is there a limit on how many people? So I would like to encourage, because we need to get moving on this relatively soon. I believe we have to start our construction in July. So that means that you could call Mary, submit your name to City Hall. I'm the chairperson of the dog park. Deborah Coelho is the vice chair of the dog park. So if you get your names to us at City Hall, we can start establishing the committee, because we need to get that going, because we need to have all these rules and regulations in place once the dog park is open. And we need your input, the design input. These are preliminary stages, but then he's going to come back with everybody, like he says, mark it up, what you want to see in there. Then it's going to come back as a design, and it'll come back to the dog park committee with all your suggestions that are in there. And I believe there's one more hearing after that to show the design, and then we're ready to go. But it's on a fast track, because we have to follow the grant specifications, so that has to move rather quickly. So like I said, I encourage people who want to be part of this committee, let's get going so we can have meetings to establish what we want to see in the dog park.
Is there a minimum for the committee?
No, there isn't. But I'm sure we'll get quite a few people, but we'd like a substantial amount of people there, because we are going to discuss everything that goes on in the dog park. Do you have anything to say? Okay.
Two things that will work in our favor of this project are that the city itself is going to construct the park, so that will help from not having to put it out to bid and lose some time there. And also from a cost standpoint, the cost that an outside contractor may incur on the project allows us to do more stuff, because we'll have more money from the town or the city installing everything. So that's actually a good point.
Okay, first of all, congratulations to Mary and everyone. Thank you all for coming here, and great work by my colleagues on the committee. Question I just had for Mary, or for Mary mostly. Maybe you can explain it to the people in attendance and those watching and listening at home. What's the process for dogs being allowed or not allowed to come forward? I know you have to be licensed, have to have all your proper paperwork, but will there not be any type of discrimination on dogs based off of, say, if you have a Rottweiler or a Pit Bull? I just want to make that very clear, because I own a German Shepherd, for example, and I know sometimes you've got stereotypes. My dog's a big baby. He loves everybody. So I just want to make sure that we set the record clear on all of that for everybody watching and listening at home, that as long as you're a responsible owner and you're doing what you have to do, all dogs are welcome.
Yes, absolutely, that's exactly correct. So we're not discriminating against any type of breed, and it really is on the dog's socialization skills. So, if there becomes a dog that starts to become a problem, then that would go before the Friends Committee, and that's the sort of thing we're looking for the Friends to really develop, is, the socialization and how we set in place guidelines for owners so that we have, proper behavior in the park. Anyone else?
Hi, by the way, I'm very happy with the way this thing seems to be going. I'm very glad to see the dog parks finally coming into the city. The only thing I can't quite get wrap my head around is Peastone. I've been to a lot of parks. Dogs love to roll around in the grass and, flip-flop around. One of the worst parks I've ever seen was pure sand. And mostly I'm used to some wood chip and, grass and dirt, which is where my dog usually runs around and plays. And I'm just trying to vision dogs playing and running and rolling around and play fighting and goofing around on Peastone. I'm just not quite seeing it.
There's the dog park in Falmouth, I'm referencing that again, because it's such a successful park, is Peastone. And one of the great things about Peastone is it's easy to keep clean, much easier to keep clean than a lawn or wood chips. Also, the Peastone, unlike a lawn, you're not going to end up with the worn areas that become muddy and slippery, so you don't have any of that either. It's from a maintenance perspective, from a cleanliness perspective, and from what I understand, I have not brought my dog to the Falmouth Dog Park, but from what I understand, as I said, it's very successful, and so clearly the dogs and the owners are very happy with that surface.
Yeah, I'm listening to this gentleman here about the dogs like to play in the grass. To the designer, is there any way of maybe putting in a small area within the large dog area and within the small dog area, a section of maybe astroturf? So that way, the dogs that like to roll around and play in that, they're not rolling around the Peastone. Because I know a lot of dogs, you see them in the park rolling around in the grass, and they wouldn't be rolling around the Peastone. So
Right.
is that a possibility that we can put little small areas of maybe astroturf there?
It is. Synthetic turf is one of the options synthetic turf is one of the options we looked at for the park. It's quite expensive, but if we're doing it in a small area, I think that would work. We are irrigating the park so we can wash things down. That's another issue with both real grass and then the synthetic is you want to clear all the waste out. So we can definitely investigate doing a small area that in both sides. Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Lizette David. I'm on the Dog Park Committee, and I'd like to mention, Mary's mentioned many times about the Falmouth Dog Park. We've been going to the Falmouth Dog Park now for 4 years. They have Peastones. Fred and I travel a lot. We go to many dog parks, Randolph, Sharon. They have wood chips, which they have problems with the wood chips, and when it rains, with the water, with the grass. We've gone to a couple dog parks with grass, which we didn't stay because there were puddles, there were mosquitoes. And the Peastones at the Falmouth Dog Park, like I said, we go there a lot. And we've never had any trouble with our dog roaming around in the Peastones. They play with the ball. They have, in the small area, they have that sand area, the small dog park area. They have this little sand area for the dogs, and it's separated. And we've never, like seen the Peastones, come up on the surface near the water fountains or anything like that. And like I said, we've been to a lot of dog parks all over the city, all over the county, absolutely out of state. We go to New Hampshire, up by Busch Gardens, up in Merrimack. And the Peastones seem to be, they less bacteria in the Peastones with the water drainage for the water fountains. So I'm for Peastones.
Great.
Jay, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to talk about the Peastones as well, if I remember correctly, I'm thinking about the health of the actual dogs and the paws when, we don't want anything getting in between the paws and causing any cuts or
Right.
Catching any infection. So I'm just curious, I know you've done something similar recently in Boston.
Yes.
How is that working out with the health of the dogs for the paws? I'm just curious, has there been any incidents? Is the temperature of the Peastones cool enough for them in the summer months? And, is it going to be warm enough in the winter months
Right.
and so forth?
Actually, in East Boston, they used stone dust. They didn't use Peastone. It was a Massport project, and that's what they decided to use. It wasn't our recommendation, but Massport being Massport, they went with the stone dust with an asphalt ring around the edge. But we felt, we looked into that for this park. The Peastone is relatively smooth. It's not super smooth, but it's not large, like a large trunk stone that might have some sharp edges. It's very smooth, so it's going to kind of just, dogs are going to walk through it or on top of it. So it's not going to, I don't think it would damage the dogs.
And it's not hot,
No, it's at, actually it's very similar to the color that's on there. It's like a beige color, so it's not, there's going to be no heat from it. No.
Anyone else?
Right.
So some parks also have a water facility outside, like a hose.
Yep.
If you get like a dewy area, the dog will roll around, and then he'll go in the dirt, roll around, and he's filthy.
Yeah.
So they have like a hose outside you can.
We can look into, like, we're gonna have the bubbler with drinking fountain for both people and dogs, so we can have maybe attachment on that has a nozzle, so you can spray down your dog if it
Yeah, that's a good
gets
idea.
a little messy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a sprinkler to run through in the hot months.
Yeah. Actually, that's great too. Yeah.
Right, and if we have a hose off of the water fountain, then we
Yep.
could do both. You could hose down your dog, or you could
Yeah.
attach it to a sprinkler. Yeah.
Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about the access and the fee? My concern is that when dog owners in the city have already paid a license fee for their dog, so now you're asking them to pay an additional fee to use the dog park. And have you studied the impacts on the low-income residents of the city?
We haven't really even started talking about what that fee would be. Absolutely, we want it to be accessible. We want people to be able to use the dog park, so we want to make sure that the fee is accessible. I personally feel that when you have any fee, even if it's a small fee, if people have, some money in it, then they tend to not take things for granted, I think. That's just my personal opinion. Again, as I said, the Friends of the Dog Park Committee will be working with us and the existing dog park committee to come up with that fee. And we really, I can't tell you what range it's even in because we really haven't had that conversation yet. But we certainly want to make sure it's accessible to residents.
Oh, yeah, now, I know that within the dog park committee, and I was listening about the hose there, we were talking about splash pads, like they have for the kids at different parks. As soon as they step on it, the water comes up.
Yep.
When they go away from it. Is that possible that we could have a splash pad for the dogs? Huh?
Yeah, that's actually going to come down to a budget item. That might not be in phase one, but there are dozens and dozens of pieces of equipment.
How much is a splash pad?
I honestly don't know. I would have to look into that. Yeah, there's not issues, but there's plumbing and whatnot with that. So.
I can tell you that the splash pads we've put in parks for children are in 6 figures. So what I like to do with the design is to put, long range, what do we hope to see in the park fully developed. It sounds like we have a lot of money, but once you start buying fences and irrigation and keypads and walkways, it goes pretty quickly. So we won't get everything we want at this first phase. But the great thing is that by collecting some fees for users, we will have an account that will be accruing, and we will be able to revisit some of these other ideas for the park.
And that's something the Friends Group can help with
Yes,
as well as the fundraisers,
exactly.
that
Yep.
type of thing, to raise some money for equipment.
Based on the size, is there going to be a limit to how many dogs you can have in there at one time? Because sometimes if you get too many people and too many dogs, it just gets chaos.
Right. I would say, especially for the large dog area, I would say no, because that's a big area for dogs to be running free. If we make the small dog area a little bit larger, we might be able to accommodate some more. But again, that might come down to some regulations that the Friends develop, that you have to wait your turn if there's more than X amount of dogs in there.
I had a question, and maybe you've decided this, but will it be just for New Bedford residents, or have you thought, or maybe it's something the committee might decide if a resident from, say, Dartmouth pays more and wants to use the dog park?
We have had that conversation because we do expect that there will be non-residents that will want to have access to it. We have not, again, this is something we would bring to the Friends of, so we have discussed how would we create an option for out-of-town folks to use the park, and it may be that they can purchase a pass that gives them 5 access times or something like that. And then, once they've used it 5 times, they'd have to get another pass, something like that. That's where the conversation is going. We don't want to restrict it if we don't have to. But again, that's not anything that we've decided on. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
They're behind you.
Oh.
As a Fairhaven resident, I would really appreciate being able to buy an annual pass. It doesn't look like in the near future there's going to be anything in my town. I also would like to speak for the fact that it's gated and that there is a fee as important, because what happens in Fall River is you get a lot of unregistered dogs and a lot of irresponsible owners. They've had problems with dog fights being held there at night and dogs having to be euthanized for killing other dogs and things like that. So I think, you have some accountability for owners when it's gated and feed. And, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
I wanted to say something to you about the fees. We've been to a couple of dog parks, and what they've done is if you've had 2 dogs, they give you a break in the fee, or if you're a senior citizen, they also give you a break. So that's also helpful, too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, terrific. So the next piece is we're going to, I'm going to hand it over to Jay, because actually this is his part, so.
We're basically going to take this plan and we're going to put it on, we'll probably put it, well, maybe on the table here. And I know there were some comments on the size of the small area versus the large area and where the parking could be and materials and whatnot. So I'd like to hear or see all of those comments written down, so when I go back to my office, I can remember everything. And I know that sometimes people are less vocal than others in these types of meetings. So that's our way of getting comments from everyone that feel comfortable to write down their thoughts. Yes.
So they can't plant trees?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Right.
I think it's a great idea as far as,
everything else, but
cleanliness and all that.
yep. Yep. That's a good point.
I'm sure you probably look at as far as license.
What are these, benches?
These are just different types of equipment we could throw out there. Yeah, so it's just an idea. That can grow or be smaller. Yeah, so this line is about where the current fence is now. So the idea is to keep that.
Like two different lots, like that are like raised, the remediation area. There's like 2 areas that are, I guess it's stone.
Yeah.
If you could make a small dog area in that
I
whole,
thought you
yeah,
could small dogs on this side and a large dog on the other.
and put parking on the street, and I think it would be much more functional.
Thank you all for joining us for this dog park presentation. The preliminary drawings are on the table and people are adding their comments. We'll be taking those comments back with us, and Jay Emperor of Presley Associates would be incorporating them into our preliminary concept drawing. We will have a more fleshed out drawing for the public to view sometime late May, early June. Per the grant, we have to have the design done by the end of June, so that's our timeline for the design. And we're hoping to start construction this summer. So we're on a fast track to get this dog park in place, and we should be inviting people into the dog park sometime within the next year for sure.